Okay, we are page 110, third paragraph. I didn't feel very good. My hands were cold and my face was cold and my feet were getting wet through my boots, and they were going to be cold too. Couldn't stop thinking about the cowboys. We'd just been lucky getting away from them the first time. They were bound to be angry with us now for escaping, and they'd want to hurt us to get even. Can we get an escort through Ridgeberry, Father? I don't know, he said. We'll ask at the Platts. The walk seemed to go on and on. The oxen were balking at walking in that blowing snow. They kept trying to turn their backs to it, and it took Father walking on one side of them and me on the other to keep them going straight. They blinked and shook their big heads and bawled. It was queer how the heavy falling snow muffled the sounds of their bawling. Fighting them all the time was tiring. Several times they just stopped and lowered their heads and stood blinking in the snow, and it took us 5 minutes of beating them and cursing them to get them going again. It seemed to go on endlessly. With all that snow pouring down around us, I couldn't tell where we were. We could only see about 20 yards in any direction, far enough to tell when we might be passing a woodlot or a house if it was close to the road, but that's all. But Father always knew where we were. "Bear up, Tim," he'd say. "It's only a mile to Green's Tavern, and just 3 miles from there." Can we warm up at the tavern? The fewer people who know we're going through, the better, he said. I ducked my head against my chest and tramped on. It began to get dark. What with the oxen balking so much, we were 3 hours behind schedule. The snow was almost a foot deep, and already the oxen were having trouble on the hills, slipping and stumbling when their hooves would strike an icy patch or a pothole hidden beneath the snow. The darkness increased until it seemed as if we were buried in it. I went on a couple of yards ahead of the oxen to feel out the road, while Father wrestled with them alone. We didn't talk any more except when Father cursed. Finding the road was hard. I would have to keep veering from side to side to touch the rail fences, and then make a guess about where the middle of the road was. Looking back, I could just make out the black, lumpy shapes of the oxen in the cart, with Father fighting along at their heads. Once he said, "This is Simple's Crossing, only 2 miles, Tim." 2 miles seemed like an endless distance. But finally we saw the spot of light, and then the windows shining through the snow. We pulled the oxen through the gate and drove them into the barn. They bawled with happiness. Father went into the house to tell the Platts that we were there. I unhitched the oxen, pitched them some hay, and went into the house myself. There was a great fire burning in the kitchen fireplace, and the smell of Johnny cake and hot gravy. My cousins swarmed around to help get my clothes off. I stripped right down to the skin, not caring that the girls were watching. They got me a blanket to wrap up in, and a place by the fire, and a plate of hot Johnny cake, and beans and gravy all over it. And I began to laugh because it felt so good to be warm and safe again. That night, my cousins and I slept by the kitchen fire. Okay, we're going to stop there. We'll go on to chapter 9 tomorrow.